In a world populated by hyper-connected devices, my next guest examines the hidden risks of this new reality. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Bruce Schneier, fellow and lecturer at Harvard Kennedy School. Welcome, Bruce.
Thanks for having me.
It's hard to imagine that any of our viewers would not recognize you, but for that small minority, give us a quick summary of your resume, Bruce.
Summaries are hard. Really, what I do is work at the intersection of security, technology, and people. I try to figure out how security works, how it fails. I write tech books. I write policy papers. I teach at a school of government right now. And I just finished a book on the Internet of Things and how that will change security and what we should do about it.
Your latest book, Click Here to Kill Everybody, just came out not long ago. What prompted you to write this book, and are things as dire as they sound in the title?
You know, the title is definitely clickbait. It's my first clickbait title, and I back off from it pretty quickly, but you have to attract them at the bookstore. Really, what I'm writing about is a world of physically capable computers. What happens when computers stop being screens that you stare at and are all about data and start being objects in your environment that you interact with and can in turn interact with you? Like cars, medical devices, thermostats, appliances, smart anything. Right? That changes the way we interact with computers. It changes what computers can do. And what I'm writing about is how that changes security. Right? The assumptions we made 10 years ago might not be true today. And that's what prompted the book. And the title is an echo of that. That it's not just click here to delete all your data. It's click here to do something physical.
What happened to our DVRs last year in October? I think it was October 21st that took Twitter off the internet.
So what happened to your DVR is that well before that, it was programmed with really lousy security, actually a default password, which means no security. And someone noticed that and built a botnet, basically built a virus that wandered around the internet looking for those devices, DVRs, webcams, some other Internet of Things devices, and took them over. And then once you have 100,000, a million of those, what can you do with them? You can do a lot of things. What this person decided to do is to use them to launch a denial of service attack. Basically, use them all to try to connect with one particular network. That network got overloaded and failed. That network happened to be a domain name server, which is a critical part of the web and how it works. And the result of that was about 25 high-profile websites went offline. So it's a cascade effect that started with a programming vulnerability in a pretty benign device, right? A webcam like the one I'm speaking with you right now, and ended up with some major internet outages.
To your point, you do focus on the Internet of Things in this book. When it comes to IoT, how do you define resilience, and what does it take technically to achieve that?
It's a big question. You know, resilience is sort of an interesting property because you can't actually go buy some of it. You can buy the things that give you resilience: survivability, mitigation, recoverability, adaptability. I think of resilience as the ability to function in a stressed environment, in an attacker environment, in some kind of bad environment. You think of how your body is resilient, or how a community might be resilient, or how you psychologically might be resilient, right? In the presence of different pressures, you can function relatively normally. And we can think about that for a network, right? So my home network, my corporate network, our nation's network, or the global internet needs to be resilient. How to get that is complicated and techy, but it is some of those features, right? We build in survivability. We build in adaptability. We build in defenses and mitigation techniques, all with the eye of that we can't stop the bad things from happening, but we can survive better in that environment, you know, just like a human body. So it's kind of a non-answer answer because there's a lot of pieces to it, but it is really the right way to think. You know, we're not going to make the cyber criminals go away. We're not going to make nation states that want to do harm go away, but maybe we can make our networks okay with them existing.
You say in the book that most technology buyers aren't willing to pay for the security to be built into the products and services that we want. So how do we get there? How do we get to the place where we're secure?
Well, so the example of the webcams is a great one, right? Your webcam, my webcam, might be part of this botnet, and in fact, there are many botnets now that the code is out. One, we have no way of knowing, right? I can't tell, and two, we kind of don't care. The webcam's working. What's the problem? So it's a very hard mechanism to make the consumer care about security because it is technical, complicated, and largely opaque. Now, this is not new. I think of lots of areas of product security and safety where consumers just don't have the ability to make smart buying decisions. Now, I flew on a plane this morning. I have no ability to check the maintenance log or verify that the engine is of high quality or even that the pilot is well trained and well rested. And in those instances, whether it's airplane safety or pharmaceuticals, we rely on government. Right? We rely on a government institution that in effect does that checking for us. And I argue in my book that that's going to happen with computers and the internet. And it's going to happen precisely because, like airplanes, they can kill people. Now, 10 years ago, it was just about data, and it was important data, right? It was Equifax, it was Cambridge Analytica, it was the Office of Personnel Management, it was a banking website, but it was just data. But when it becomes about objects that can affect the world in a direct physical manner, it becomes about life and property. And governments step in and regulate security and safety. And the bulk of my book is about how that could happen.
What happens when one AI algorithm meets another when it's actually expecting to meet a human?
Don't know. Maybe they have AI children and we all live happily ever AI after. Right? This is a new area. We don't know what happens. We haven't done a lot of this before. And it's autonomy, right? AI, it's automation, and it's physical agency. What happens when an AI military robot meets another? What happens when an AI doctor meets an AI-generated disease? I mean, I'm making this stuff up, and it's science fiction, but it's not stupid science fiction. And what I want to do in starting this discussion is not to say regulation is going to be our answer, but that it's coming. And we need to talk about it now before these science fiction scenarios become reality. Right? Let's have the conversation not in a moment of panic, right? Not after those AIs met each other, but before, well before, so we can sit down and figure it out.
There's always been a conflict between businesses that want a secure product as secure as possible and government who wants a backdoor that security can hunt down criminals, right? So how do you satisfy both requirements without leaving an attack surface for the bad guys?
Well, so there'll always be an attack surface for the bad guys, right? Welcome to life. There is no such thing as absolute security. So the question here is security versus security. Is the security of our phones and computers and appliances and cars and power plants and national infrastructure more important than the security we get by being able to eavesdrop on the bad guys? It seems obvious to me. I mean, as soon as you give cell phones in the hands of legislatures and nuclear power plant operators, they better be completely secure. So now what do we do with the FBI, who's now going to be told, you can't have insecure devices. It's too dangerous. No, we have to give them better forensic tools. Now, I mean, this is not originally my argument. Susan Landau says the same thing. But in a world where everything is computerized and networked and hopefully secure, we need to give the police 21st century tools to solve crimes. And don't think that corporations are on the side of security. Right? Google, Facebook, they want to spy on you. Surveillance is the business model of the internet. So there's not a lot of security out there. We need to actually make those companies more secure than they are now.
You talk about how Europe is the pioneer, if you will. They're certainly leading the regulatory front. What should we be doing here in the United States to imitate Europe?
I call Europe the regulatory superpower on the planet because they are. In the United States, the government is so dysfunctional at the federal level that it's hard to imagine things we can do legislative-wise. I like seeing the work coming out of the federal agencies, the FTC, the Food and Drug Administration, Department of Transportation, Aviation, FDA. There's a lot there. In the US, there are some states doing some important work, specifically New York, Massachusetts, California are leading the way. We just have a new IoT law passed in California. And what's interesting is if laws are passed by the EU, by California, that affect software, we all benefit. It's not like hardware where the car you buy in the US and Mexico are different because the laws are different. In software, once a manufacturer fixes a security problem, they're going to sell it everywhere because it's easier and cheaper to maintain one software base. So in fact, the US can play catch up. Now, I'd like us to lead, but we're not. We're ceding authority to the states within our country and other big markets outside our country. But we will be dragged along regardless.
It's complicated, right? So we have all the states, we have government, we have the federal government. I mean, where do we start first? How do we uncomplicate this issue?
I don't think you uncomplicate it. I think it's inherently complicated. I'd like to uncomplicate it. And that makes this hard. I mean, so you imagine a law being passed in the US or the California law about IoT security, and cheaper, less secure devices are being made in some other country, and they're coming in not through the normal means of being sold in stores, but by mail. How do you stop them? You can't. This gets back to resilience. This is inherently complicated, inherently iterative, inherently dangerous. The more we can make things resilient, the more we can weather the threats, regardless of the complications. I don't think we're going to simplify our way out of this. I mean, it's a nice idea, right? Just disconnect, make products less complicated, but that's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. How do we get security in any case?
So let's talk about it from the individual level then. Without giving away your conclusions from the book, what should we as technology consumers look for to know what we're getting and that we're getting the best security for our dollar?
You know, I'll give away the conclusion. It's okay. I don't mind. And for consumers, unfortunately, the answer is not much. There's not much you can do because you just don't have the expertise. The information isn't there. You can't walk into a store and look at two wireless routers and pick the one that's more secure. You can't tell. In my book, I talk about trying to buy a baby monitor. It's something where you want the privacy, the audio connection, because it's in your bedroom listening, to be secure. I tried to help a friend buy one, and I couldn't figure out what the secure models were. I just didn't have the information. And if I can't do it, consumers can't do it. What I tell consumers to do is agitate for political change. If we want security in our devices, we have to make it a political issue. If it's not going to happen. The market will not give it to us.
Bruce Schneier, fellow and lecturer at Harvard Kennedy School, an internationally renowned security technologist and author of Click Here to Kill Everybody. I highly recommend the book. Always interesting to read your work and keeping us informed and keeping us secure. Thanks so much, Bruce, for joining us. If somebody wants to maybe, buy a copy of your book or follow your blog, how can they do that?
Buying a copy of my book, you just go buy a book wherever you buy books. I'm on Schneier.com. Schneier.com. And that's where you'll find my books, my essays, all my writings. If I've said anything in public, it's there.
And thank you so much again, Bruce. If you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or go to my website, tonyahall.net. I've got links to all my social sites. Thanks for watching.